Welcome to my kitchen, members of MCQ Gardening Collective. I submit my recipe by format of video. What we want to do today is take a humble potato and give it the love and attention that it deserves to elevate it to something that will outshine a protein on our plate. And we're going to do that by using technique and simple ingredients. So I have these yellow Quebec potatoes cut in a shape that we don't usually see with a roasted potato. Usually we see smaller pieces. I prefer a shape more like what we'd see in the proportions of a scallop. And what this allows us to do is really get these edges dark while allowing the inside to be fluffy and soft without having a plate of crunchy potatoes. So this is my preferred way of cutting the potatoes, and it'll make a difference in the final result. And I find the yellow potatoes to have the right starch content so that it's not so fluffy that it dries out. It's actually quite perfect in this shape, roasted at a high temperature so that we don't lose all the moisture inside. It's quite nice. So we're going to take a butter and we're going to infuse this butter with some rosemary. So I have a sprig here, as well as some thyme. And I'm gonna take probably 2 cloves of this garlic here. And then secret ingredient is gonna be the honey. We have our butter on a low simmer with our herbs inside. I chopped the rosemary into small pieces because it is rather tough. So it'll soften up if you chop it. So we have our garlic, thyme, rosemary here in the butter. We're gonna add the honey. How much? Not really sure. We're gonna just add and see what that does to our texture. So you can see this is able to absorb quite a bit of honey and sweetness without gumming up. So I would say I'm just gonna add a bit more. I would call that good. We've got the herbs that are steeping into the butter. We've got the honey that's gonna provide some sweetness. The herbs are woody, so it's gonna make a really nice overall flavor. Now you'll see a lot of recipes call for putting the potatoes on your baking sheet and drizzling the butter or oil over them before roasting, but I find it more effective to toss it in a bowl, because what we want is the maximum contact possible with as much surface area of the potato that we can get. So these potatoes have been brined for about 3 hours now, so they've been soaking in a solution of water and sea salt. So instead of drizzling in the pan, we're gonna toss it in the bowl, and it's hot, so we're gonna take a wooden spoon and make sure that I have a child trying to avoid the camera. We're gonna make sure that we get as much contact with the butter as possible onto the surface of the potato. And we can see now, it's in a couple of seconds, it's very well coated. Also, I preheated my oven to 425 degrees Fahrenheit, and I put the baking sheet in there to preheat so that once the potatoes hit the pan, we've started cooking. Because our goal is to get all sides of this potato crispy. So when we preheat the pan, we get a head start by getting that crispiness on the bottom, and then at the same time on the top from the hot air of the oven. So if we were to put that in cold, we would have a delay where the pan would take time to heat up, delayed by the cold potatoes sitting on it. So when we preheat it, it's like putting it into a hot skillet. So preheated baking sheet, very hot. And roasting is anything from 400 degrees and up. Oh my God. Roasting is high temperature. So we're gonna cook this at a high temperature. This is not baking, this is roasting. So in we go. We're gonna make sure all these potatoes are lying flat. Any excess butter is going in. Any rounded edges are going to be turned up. We're going to be cooking from the bottom up simultaneously with the top down. Here we go. No, I'm not going to be setting a timer. I like to use a cake tester, especially with vegetables, because we get so much feedback from this. To use a paring knife it's almost too sharp, so we don't get the feedback from the texture of the doneness of the vegetable. With a fork, it's almost too blunt, so we're stabbing through it. But this seems to have the perfect shape that we can feel exactly the doneness and the texture of the vegetable that we're cooking. So this is my preferred. I use this all the time. So I'm going to be cooking the potatoes to doneness. So we're going to be using our eyes, we're going to be using our sensation, and we're going to be using our smell, and that's when we're going to know when the potatoes are done, not by the timer. Timer is not set. For example, we're 15 minutes in. You can see the potatoes have a long way to go. We want to get some better color on the outside. But we really get a better sense of it when we use the cake tester and we can see what's going on inside the potato. So I'd say we're about halfway through. It's starting to soften up. We can feel the resistance or lack thereof. So it goes back in. So what we have going on here is we've got some asparagus that we want to keep nice and bright and crisp. We're going to hit them with citrus once they're on the plate. And then we did a protein, and this is the braising liquid. We're going to reduce this down to a sauce that's going to help elevate our potatoes. Now these potatoes are perfect. And I know that because there's no resistance when I use the cake tester. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put my oven on broil, and it's already browned, but we're gonna keep pushing it. So for plating, what I like about this shape is we can build it, we can stack it. And you can see the yellow potatoes did a really good job of darkening on the outside, and they're still moist and fluffy on the inside, but not dry. So we're gonna take some asparagus. We're gonna hit that with a little bit of citrus. And a little bit of Pecorino Romano. Now we have our protein. And we have the braising liquid that we've reduced down. That is just about to split. So roasted potato. Crispy on the outside and very much fluffy on the inside. We are nicely plated up here. So who won? Was it the protein or was it the vegetable? I think it's going to be a tough call. The roasted potatoes are perfect. They're fluffy on the inside. Drizzled in the pan sauce from our octopus. Crispy on the outside. It's like a giant French fry. The octopus I slow braised. Well, slow braised about 1 hour on the stovetop to braise, and we used that to make the sauce here. So, potato wins.